Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Book Drops. We are here today with me, Dawn Boozer, the coordinator of the House Center for the Book and the manager of the Literature Department here at Cleveland Public Library.
And I'm Sarah Flynn. I'm the manager of the Popular Library.
And we'd like to welcome you to our Groundhog Day episode. So we decided in honor of Groundhog Day today, we were going to talk about books on time travel. So there were a lot more than what I had actually remembered seeing in the past. So we're going to talk about some books and we're going to talk about some movies. So reads and views today.
And TV shows.
And TV shows.
Yeah.
So we got all kinds of a nice variety for everybody today. I did find it interesting in researching this episode that there are basically three different kinds of time travel stories. So we have the single continuum, which is where you can't really change anything. And this is like the Harry Potter episode where they went back to save Buckbeak and ended up they were there the whole time to save him anyway. Mm-hmm. We also have the fixed points in history. So you can change some things. That's like the Terminator, and we're going to talk about Doctor Who in just a little bit. But you can go back in time and you can change certain things. But the big events like the eruption of Vesuvius and World War II, those things are always still going to happen. And then you finally have the third type, which are the alternative timelines, alternative worlds. Everything's up for grabs. Everything can change. Doesn't matter. So with those three in mind, I think it's kind of interesting to look at the books that we're going to talk about. We're not going to assign each one of them to each individual category, by the way. But we are, I think it's interesting to look at the decisions that authors make and TV producers make in that sort of scenario with those three different options to them, which way they go. And it's kind of interesting to sort of see it that way. Time travel has a very long history. We go the whole way back to H.G. Wells and The Time Machine and A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain. So we're going back to even the earliest story is from 1819, and that would have been Rip Van Winkle, who it's not really time travel, but he falls asleep and wakes up in the future. So, I mean, but that goes back the whole way to 1819. The Mark Twain was writing in the late 1880s. H.G. Wells was 1880s as well. So this has been a popular genre for a long time. And the other one that I want to mention is that with The Time Machine 2, we mentioned we're going to talk about movies. So I think that it's important to say the 1960 movie, I would recommend. The one from 2002 with Jeremy Irons, not so much. So if you're looking for an adaptation, I would go with the older version on that one. I think that's pretty much setting the stage. So we also talked about what makes time travel stories interesting. So you do have that option to change historical events. And it also gives the author and the reader the chance to enjoy another time from a different perspective too. So you get to learn about, ancient Rome or wherever you're going to be, but you also get to see it from a more modern sensibility and stuff like that. So it's a good way to sort of almost a historical fiction too with a twist. Yeah. So, and then you get to change your family events and all that, so we'll talk about that. So anyway, welcome to our Groundhog Day episode. So to start out, the one that I think we both wanted to talk about real quickly was you can't talk about time travel without talking about Octavia Butler's Kindred. If you haven't read this book, this happens to be the graphic novel adaptation of the book, but this is probably one of her most celebrated works. It tells the story of a woman from an African-American woman from the 1970s who goes back and ends up in the pre-Civil War South and gets involved actually with members of her extended family whenever she goes back in time. And it's back and forth in time, and it's a really twisted tale, and not twisted in the bad sense, but just lots of things going on. Highly recommend it. And the introduction to the graphic novel was actually done by Nnedi Okorafor, so who we personally know.
Yeah,
so.
Of course.
But excellent book to start out, and this also blurs the lines between genre and literature, which I think again reinforces our point about that there really isn't genres. There's good literature and bad literature. So this is some good stuff.
And then I think we're going to talk about Michael Crichton's Timeline next, which we both kind of agree is an excellent book and not an excellent movie.
Not an excellent movie, yeah. And that's one of the things I think that we've talked about several times is that you have a producer or a movie director who they say, oh man, this book was great, we should make it into a movie. Just stick to the book. Come on, there's a reason people like the book. Come on. But yeah, this is a great thing. It's, if I remember, it's been a while now. It's an archaeological dig, and fill in the details for me there.
It's been a while for me too, but they're history students, and they end up traveling back to 14th century France.
Yes, and the one of the things I liked about this was how they figured out that they were in 14th century France by some of the things they were digging up in the archaeological dig, if I remember correctly, and that way they know that there's something going on that they need to remedy. So, but yeah, and the ending I think is really cool too. So, Timeline by Michael Crichton. If you like the medieval time period, this is a great one to sort of get you back into that mindset. So,
and then I looked up some trivia about the movie. Michael Crichton disliked this movie so much that he refused to license any more movies based on his novels. Nobody would gain the movie rights to a Michael Crichton book until Steven Spielberg, longtime friend of Crichton, bought the rights to Pirate Latitudes after Crichton's death. So he was that mad about this
He was
movie.
pretty adamant about that.
I love that. And then I ran through Rotten Tomatoes and just had to share this review by Joe Lozito. If only I could go back in time to convince myself not to watch this ludicrous time travel yarn, which faxes a group of uninteresting characters back to the 1300s to screw up the space-time continuum.
Oh, that's great. Sometimes the reviews are better than the movies, I just want to say. So that's awesome. I had no idea that he felt that strongly. I knew that he didn't like it, but I didn't know he felt that strongly.
Yeah.
Wow. That's taken out a whole revenue stream there. Okay. So the next one I think we wanted to talk about was
Doctor Who.
Yes, indeed.
So definitely through obviously huge time travel throughout all of them. The ones that stuck out for us the most was the one with Matt Smith being the Doctor, where he goes and visits Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go just pull up scenes
go
on
to YouTube and type in Doctor Who and Vincent van Gogh. And if you do not shed a tear, then I do not want to hang out with you. It's like, I will admit, we actually went and we watched the like the 3-minute clip, at whenever we were putting this together. So it's like, do we want to watch it again? Yeah, we want to again. It's so well done. And Tony Curran, who plays Vincent van Gogh, is just spot on. So, but that was one of the things we said we definitely have to talk about Doctor Who if you're going to talk about time travel.
Definitely another one. Let's Kill Hitler. There's a Pompeii one. There's one during the French Revolution. So obviously, I did pull up that 10 years into the show's run, it was established that the Time Lords have their own laws of time, practically all of which the Doctor has broken over the course of his or her adventures. They include a strict policy of non-interference in the history of others and a rule banning Time Lords from ever crossing over their own time stream, like meeting your past self, which check and check. I know, after whatever 50 years, gonna break some of these rules.
Exactly.
And then I've got another one, which is a hugely popular one, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. And I just wanted to say, just up front, there's a trigger warning for sexual abuse throughout these books. But they're just, if you've read or listened to them on audio or watched any of the show, you know how compelling and just fantastic this series is. She is a nurse in World War II and is in Scotland and goes up to some kind of like old, like Stonehenge type stones and gets pulled through. So it's hard to to say how much.
I really think that in the books, and of course in the TV show, it's all the visuals. But I think in the books, she really tries to evoke that time period too, about being in the Highlands and being the clans. And she really at least seems to me to do her research.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of information about the time. Like she goes back, she's a nurse, so she goes back and like the healing practices at the time are non-existent. So she helps out a lot in that capacity.
Or worse than non-existent, they're existent, which is even worse sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Like let's wrap this up with a dirty rag. So I looked up a few things about it, and there's a castle, Dun Castle, which doubles as Castle Leoch in the show, has seen the largest amount of new travelers with a 226% increase in visitors since the show. And then also, since we were looking at this, she got the idea for writing it when she was watching an old episode of Doctor Who that has Highlanders in it. So that was good.
All comes together,
I know,
everybody.
I
Look at
know.
that. Look at us. Look at us. Continuity.
And then I love just like I was flipping through and looking at like the beginning scenes when she first gets transported back. Jamie's shoulder is dislocated, and that's how she meets him. And all the guys are trying to like wrench it like back up into place, and she shakes her head and goes over and knows how to do it because she was a nurse in World War II. Just jams it right back into place like perfectly. And it's such a good like introduction scene, and that she goes back in her 1940s clothes with like a like a knee-length dress, and they all think she is just scandalous because her legs are showing. I know, and it's great. It's like this running joke like throughout, that like what is she doing out here half dressed because you would wear full skirts at the time. So it's fantastic. So give it a try in any of its forms.
Yep. Yeah, and they are just they are door stoppers. If you haven't seen the books in person before, they are definitely door stoppers. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So no conversation about time travel in movies would be complete without talking to, of course, Back to the Future, the series 1, 2, and 3. The whole idea of Marty McFly going back in the DeLorean. I guess by mistake in the first one. That's right. He jumped in and then was trying to run away from the terrorists, if I remember correctly. Yep. Yeah, that's right. And then chaos ensues. That's one of the ones I think that would fall under our category 3. I said I wasn't going to do that, but that would be alternate timelines because he starts to dissolve and his sister and brother start to dissolve in the picture and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of those ones where anything can happen. So sort of raises the bar a little bit. So yeah, so Back to the Future. I believe just recently they had just an anniversary of those two. There was a bunch of stuff about Back to the Future just recently too, either a couple years ago or so. But they're classics. So enjoy them if you haven't enjoyed them before. Get some popcorn and check them out.
I have another really good one next, which is 11/22/63, which is by Stephen King. Time travel when they're trying to go back and prevent JFK's assassination. And this is also a tome. So, there's a TV adaptation with James Franco. There's also the audiobook. So there's some rules with this one too. So every journey that you go through, there's a portal and a diner. Every journey through the portal transports the traveler to September 9th, 1958 in the morning. So you have 5 years from that point when you go back until JFK's assassination. No matter how long someone stays in the past, hours, days, weeks, only 2 minutes have elapsed when you go back through the portal to 2011. So it's kind of crazy that way. Past events can be changed. However, subsequent use of the portal resets the timeline and nullifies all changes made on the previous excursion. So if you really he does this multiple times, but if you mess up the events, you go back through and it resets. So you can see how that comes in handy. Exactly.
Like a video game.
And then also the past will throw up obstacles to prevent history from being changed. So, and then the resistance is proportional to the magnitude of the change. So what he's trying to do, he really comes up against so many issues trying to just, prevent this from happening. So, another interesting thing about this, the date of November 22nd is tied to other time travel stories as well. Back to the Future premiered on November 22nd, 1989. Star Trek First Contact premiered on November 22nd, 1996. And Doctor Who premiered the day after on November 23rd, 1963, although it didn't get much of an audience because it was the day after. So
November 22nd is like if you're going to celebrate time travel and you go for that one.
Yeah, day to do it.
That's traditional now. So
yeah.
So another one I wanted to bring up that doesn't always get some airplay is 12 Monkeys that starred Bruce Willis. Now, I didn't realize this was actually inspired by a French film called La Jetée. The director, Terry Gilliam, is known for his weird movies, Time Bandits and all of the Brazil. Yeah. Talk about weird. And also his animations for, of course, the Monty Python's Flying Circus series as well. But 12 Monkeys stars Bruce Willis, and he tries to go back in time to prevent a plague. Look at that. So I don't know where he ended up, 2020. We could have used him there. But But he is sent back in time to do this, and there's a back and forth where he fails, and sort of like your portals too. He gets pulled back into the future, and he's like, no, I know what I can do. He'd go back in. So it's this back and forth, back and forth. The ending is done very well. It's a really twist ending. So if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend it. It's like I said, it's a little weird, especially the scenery and costumes in the future stuff are just Terry Gilliam-ish. But it's done really well. It's some really sharp storytelling. So I would recommend that one if you haven't seen that one as well. So 12 Monkeys. It was also done into a TV series, and I will admit I have not seen the TV series. So I'm curious to see, maybe try and check that out at some point. But it was a nice self-contained story in the movie. So I'm always curious about movies that are made into TV series. It's like, well, what else are you gonna do? So 12 Monkeys starring Bruce Willis.
I've got a movie next, The Edge of Tomorrow from 2014, which I think is overlooked. Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. Yeah. Fantastic, so entertaining if you haven't seen this movie. It's adapted from the 2004 Japanese novel All You Need Is Kill by Hiroshi Sakurazaka. The film takes place in a future where most of Europe is occupied by an alien race, and Tom Cruise is a public relations officer. He doesn't have combat experience, but he's forced to join a landing operation, and then he gets stuck in a time loop, and they can't, no matter how many times they go through this battle, they cannot beat these aliens. So it's Emily Blunt, super tough. She's fantastic.
Oh man, she is. I would not want to tangle with her,
oh
man.
My gosh, I was trying to figure
that and The Quiet Place too. She's like proven herself as an action hero.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing in this. She does like a one-armed like push-up or like plank kind of. She's great. And then I liked one of the producers said they wanted to do the film because it showed a role that Tom Cruise hadn't done yet, which was someone who is very bad at what he does, which I loved. So.
Yeah, that is a great one. And we will there's so many spoilers I want to like share right now, but I will not do that. So we'll let you discover that one on your own. But yeah, that is an awesome one. I really like that one. As anybody who's watched us for a little while now, you will know that I am always trying to promote graphic novels and comics. So we had the Kindred one. I have two time travel ones here right now. The first one is Too Cool to Be Forgotten by Alex Robinson. And this is a story of a man who is undergoing hypnosis therapy to cure him of his smoking. But what happens is he gets transported back into the body of himself as a high school student, and with all the sensibilities that he has as an adult. So he is still knows everything he did, across all the years, and he's dealing with these students that he loses patience with them and that sort of thing. But it's very poignant towards the end too, because his father is also dying, and so there's that part. And then so the ending is very poignant, and it's really around. It's very short, so it is not a doorstopper. It is not an Outlander. So you can sit down and read this one in probably about half an hour. So this is a lot. I hesitate to say it's fun, but it's a really good read and has a really good story with it, and it's a nice clean drawing style as well. I also have Patience by Daniel Claus, and this one is also a time travel. It's actually a unique time travel mechanism too, because it's actually something that he injects into himself to make him go through the time. So I had not heard that particular one before. It's usually some kind of machine or mechanism or something. And so I think that this is really interesting. The whole premise is that his pregnant wife gets killed in their apartment, and he is grieving for years and years after this happens. And in the future then, he finally finds a way to go back and try and save her. So he keeps going back and forth again and again, trying to save her. And again, the ending in this one, not what I expected, but it was very satisfying as an ending as well. So Patience by Daniel Claus. He's a well-known comics artist and creator. So then this is getting a little bit more doorstoppy. It has, there's some resistive exercise potential there. So that's definitely another one you want to check out there.
I have one that I haven't read, but I had to recommend. It's by Dean Koontz, Lightning, which I read a lot of Dean Koontz for a while. Watchers, if you haven't read, is a fantastic book. And then Odd Thomas, the series, I love too. The fictional universe supports the theory that nature will not allow a paradox to exist, including meeting oneself. Furthermore, in order to prevent the Back to the Future syndrome of preventing one's own existence by past actions, time can only be traversed into the future, and the energy used to move through time disrupts the natural environment during the arrival at the target time and place, which causes massive unexplained lightning storms.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Dean Koontz is one of those that takes up about 50 feet of shelf space in the, department.
Gosh,
So he's another Stephen Kingish author
Definitely.
there. But you never run out of things to read by Dean Koontz. But yeah, and I find it interesting here too that there's so many authors that have used this as a trope in their things. Because I mean, we've got Dean Koontz, we talked about Stephen King, all those. I mean, I guess at some point everybody's going to write a time travel story in one way or another. So that's I find that kind of interesting too. That it's not just people who are just sci-fi authors either. So there's all that kind of thing as well. So cross genres, exactly. I wanted to talk about briefly 1632 by Eric Flint. I really enjoyed this book, and this is from a while ago. This is a hard copy that's been for this one is from 2000. So we're talking like 20 some years ago now. That's the paperback. But the whole idea is that there is a town in West Virginia that somehow it's never really explained why, and it's not really relevant to the story even. So it's like this is what happens. It gets scooped out of West Virginia in the present and gets plopped down during the 30 Years' War in Europe. And so they have all of their pickup trucks and their ammo and their guns and those sorts of modern conveniences, but they're plopped down in the middle of this raging war going on throughout Europe. And it's how they interact with all of the combatants and how things work. And Gustavus Adolphus is in there. One of the things that I found really interesting about this one was I was doing some genealogy research at the time, and I was able to trace my family tree back to around that same time period. And you don't really hear that much about the 30 Years' War. So I was like, oh, well, this might be kind of fun. And it does, again, it gives you that option to sort of get information about a time period, but with having a fun, engaging story in it too. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of fun. So one of the problems I have with 1632 is that it sparked a series, and there are well over 24 books in that series now. So now we're talking about, dealing with the Americans going to North America. There's some Asian stories. There's more things that going on throughout Europe. So at some point, and I'll use the word complained. I complained to Sarah about this, that after a while, it doesn't really end up being time travel anymore, in the sense that they're just dealing with their day-to-day occurrences. So they're mining, they're learning to mine chromium for the things that they need in their modern technology and that kind of stuff. But it becomes more almost of just going about your daily life, and there are some timeline changes and things like that. But 24 books is like, that's a lot of books, and they're all they're good sized novels. So it's not like and so the reason I liked it was a nice unique story. Hadn't really seen it before. A new setting. You don't hear, like I said, 30 Years' War is not one of those ones you hear a lot in novels. But the whole thing of just going on and on and on with here's another story. It's like time to branch out a little bit. So, but really enjoyed it. 1632 is great. Read a couple of the sequels. But and if you like that, more power to you. Again, never apologize for your reading tastes. That's a good motto to live by. But I think that I was ready to move on after a couple of them. So
I have a movie next, Interstellar.
Oh yeah.
Which is a fantastic movie, and I can't say enough about it. And it's hard to just say a lot about it without ruining the plot, but it's set in 2067. There's crop blights and dust storms, which threaten humanity's survival on Earth. And it centers around Cooper, who's played by Matthew McConaughey. He's a widowed engineer and a former NASA pilot, and he's a farmer now. But there's these awful dust storms. He gets pulled back into NASA, learns that 48 years earlier, unknown beings placed a wormhole near Saturn, opening a path to a distant galaxy with 12 potentially habitable worlds located near a black hole called Gargantua. Revealed are 2 plans to ensure humanity's survival. Plan A involves developing an anti-gravitational propulsion theory to propel settlements into space, while Plan B involves launching the Endurance spacecraft carrying 5,000 frozen human embryos to settle a habitable planet. So it's just a fantastic movie, and it's has everything to it. You think it's going to be this cold sci-fi movie, and it's really not. It's about family and love and distance, and
and I will admit, I have not seen it, but the thing that I always remembered was that I see online where Matthew McConaughey is just crying like a baby. I was like,
it's another one. If you do not cry in this movie, you do not have a heart, because oh boy, yeah.
So Van Gogh, Interstellar, you want a good cry.
Yeah.
Those 2 things you need to look for. and I saw Katie has left us a comment, so I am going to just go back in time.
Oh, nice.
And yes, indeed, we did talk about Kindred, and I think this is actually the one we started our episode out with, and I think this is an excellent example. And I mentioned that I think this really blends the genre again into literature and sci-fi and fantasy, and it's done. It couldn't get more higher praise, and it's already gotten more higher praise from me, than I can give out there in the world. So yes, definitely Octavia Butler's Kindred.
Oh, I know. We talked about the time traveler's wife.
We only have 30 minutes.
I know, we're running out of time as we speak.
We did actually talk. We did bring that one up.
And I think we talked about it's having an adaptation, and in 2 weeks we're talking about TV adaptations.
That's true.
I think it is.
Yep.
But I know it was tough to pick and choose, but I've heard only good things about it.
Oh, good. And Melissa both like Lightning and Interstellar. So see, we have good taste. See?
And I had a Interstellar little tidbit that I couldn't stop reading about it. The writer, producer, and director Christopher Nolan cast Matthew McConaughey after seeing his performance in Mud in 2012. It was an ideal moment for Nolan when they landed Texas native McConaughey for the lead role. Didn't know how much potential he had until I saw Mud, not just as a leading man, but in sheer acting talent. And he remarked that in McConaughey, he needed an everyday man who can experience these extraordinary events, like you're saying, going back, and you need to see it through different eyes. But yeah, he's just fantastic.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Oh, thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you for that. We only have a few minutes left, but and I didn't ask you this before, but I'm curious if you could travel in time. Is there a particular event or a particular time period that you would want to see, or?
It's tough. I think, I'm thinking.
Or the other option is, it's like, no, I don't want to do that. Or I guess you could travel to the future as well. So I mean, so the past and the future. So.
I'd have to say, just with my romance brain, I would be going to Regency England, and of course, not just so there's no big, I guess actually the Napoleonic Wars were that too, but I'm trying to pick a time period without any war. And
yeah, exactly. It's hard to do. Yeah, you're pretty much stuck with a war somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
How about you?
I would want to go back and see the dinosaurs. I want to see actual dinosaurs.
That's a good one.
So that's it. And I would love to try and go back to ancient Greece and see like a lost play of Aristophanes or Sophocles or something like that, with a chip in my brain that I can understand the dialogue. Just gonna say that. But I think that being able to, I guess I should say, go to the Library of Alexandria too. Yeah. So it's like, but yeah, and just I think that's one of the things I really think that fiction does for you, is that it gives you the chance to sort of envision a different time period, a different world every time you open up a book, and you're able to really enter that world. Movies do that as well, but it's almost like novels give you a little bit more ownership of the story too. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's something to be said for being able to visualize, and then I'm a sucker for maps, even if it's an historical novel, I'm a sucker for maps. That sort of thing. But I think that being able to really savor a story, I think you really need to read it in a book. I mean, call me old school, but or listen to it on audio now. So there is that. And Any other closing thoughts for our Groundhog episode today? So welcome to our Groundhog episode. Oh, sorry. I will not do that anymore. And just as a matter of trivia, I did grow up about 30 minutes away from Punxsutawney. So Punxsutawney Phil is the Groundhog that I listen to for the prognostication. So thank you for joining us for another Book Drops episode. And thank you, Sarah, for joining me as well. And we will actually be back next week. And then next month, we're having our co-hosts come up too. So we're looking forward to that. So you'll see some different faces here as well. So have a good day. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.